Welcome to Ortho Insider, the podcast that goes behind the scenes of orthopedics in Canada and worldwide. Today we have a very special guest. This is Dr. Scott Fletcher. He is an orthopedic surgeon in Australia, specializing in hip and knee surgery, and the current president of the Australian Orthopaedic Association. He practices in Tasmania in Australia, and he is currently on the presidential carousel. So welcome, Dr. Fletcher. Thanks for being here.
Cheers. Great to be in Vancouver.
Yeah, I know. So our first question always is, well, how did you get your start in orthopedics, and how did you get into orthopedics in the first place?
So I came in slowly. When I finished my medical training, I thought I was going to be a physician. And then I went to a hospital where I did some orthopedics because you do rotations.
Yes.
And I was looked after by an orthopedic surgeon who I really liked. He was smart. He was a good surgeon.
Yeah.
He was a team builder. He was fun to be around.
Awesome.
And so that little support from a single person was enough to get me interested in orthopedics.
That's amazing. So like a single mentor changed your career essentially.
In a small place.
Right. And because you are from Burnie in Tasmania, and you were saying that Tasmania is a small place and Burnie is a small place in a small place.
Yeah. So I did my training in Hobart, the medical school training, but my first intern job and my second year job was in Launceston. And in that place, there was a team builder that I particularly liked. As I said, he was smart, he was clever, inspirational in many senses. So he said, if you want to be an orthopedic surgeon, I suggest you go overseas. You do your primary, get your exam, and when you've done that, come back and see me. And that's exactly what I did. So in my third year out, I travelled to the UK. I did my primary, as they called it, in the UK, and from there came back to Tasmania and began the journey.
And did he help you with your career after you came back?
Absolutely. He's still my main mentor, my main person I go to for advice. He's been great.
Yeah. And so as the president of the Australian Association, you are obviously now thrust into that role of team building, being a leader, being an inspiration. Yeah. So what did you learn from your mentor that you're bringing into this role?
Well, as I said, he very much is a supporter. He will guide in decision making. I often go to his place for the night, and we will sit down after a journal club meeting, for example. And when others go home, I will stay behind, and we would have a chat over a drink about orthopedic issues. And so sometimes those issues, it's clear the direction you should go. Sometimes the way forward is not so clear. And so he's a good sounding board for getting the right direction. He's very much connected with the membership, what's right for the membership, what's right for the patient. You know, his fundamentals are very clear, and I benefit from that.
Yes, it's definitely helpful having somebody with a clear vision that you can bounce off of, for sure. So as the Australian Orthopaedic Association president, a large part of your platform is connection.
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that means to you?
So our strategy in orthopedics is very much around the membership and the patient, having the right evidence to be able to care for the patient in the right way, running the business well. But we've realised that unless you're actually connected, not only with the patients and yourself and with your colleagues, but also outside of orthopedics with government, with industry, and we've been hearing a little bit about this in Vancouver.
Yes.
Unless we're connected, we can have the right policies, we can have the right guidelines, but unless we're connected, then we're not impactful. We're not meaningful. We don't have relevance. And so the strategy or the plan for my annual scientific meeting in Hobart in October of this year is all about connection. It's got three arms. Okay. It's connection with self, and this morning we heard from your next Canadian president about personal well-being. So one arm is about personal well-being.
Amazing.
The second is about connection within orthopedics, and the third arm is connection outside orthopedic with the broader health sector.
Interesting. That's really cool. So that has a lot of kind of connections. There's a buzzword to exactly what you said, Dr. Suti Dulai, who's our next incoming president, the 8th president, and hers is really about that first pillar, but also the other ones as well. If we kind of go through each one of those, so in terms of well-being, connection to self,
Yeah.
what are some of the things that the AOA is trying to focus on there?
So I think this is a strengthening issue globally.
Mm-hmm.
And so in Australia, amongst the individual state meetings we've had, there's been people who have been prepared to stand up and talk about their personal issues that they've had in a stressful environment and what they've done about it. And I think being open to the fact that you're not perfect, that you're not totally resilient, that you are vulnerable in a stressful environment, and what you can do about it has now milked its way through to a more national scene. So one of the things I'm going to have at my conference is a guy who's had that personal stress and has come through the other side. He's recognised it. He's gathered a team around him, which is now moving from a state-based to a national-based movement to openly discuss those vulnerabilities and what we can do about it.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. We've had a lot of chat, even on this season's podcast, about exactly that.
Yeah.
And at least in Canada, I'm sure worldwide, there's almost this shame around talking about it. So it's kind of hidden in the shadows a little bit. And your take on having these very respected people come out and say, hey, listen, I've been through it. It's not because you're a bad surgeon. It's not because you're a bad person. It just happens, right?
I think we've moved a long way, over the last 20 or 30 years. When I first came on, one of the hesitations I had with being an orthopaedic surgeon was how robust you needed to be. You needed to be able to survive on 5 hours sleep a night. And you needed to be able to keep on going despite the, the things that are thrown at you. And to a certain extent, you need to still be able to do that. But I think there's much upside in having support, doing it together as a team, and also looking after yourself.
Yeah.
Having interests outside of orthopaedics, I think, is important. Looking after family is important. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. Back 30 years ago, there was a complete dedication to orthopaedics, at least in the circles that I grew up in. And as a consequence of that, things suffer.
Yeah.
I didn't spend enough time with my kids, which I could never get back. But I've got a chance now to, get to know my kids better, work in a more supportive environment, have less of an emphasis on working all the time, having a more balanced life.
Yeah.
And that's the message that I would like to give over in Hobart in October this year.
Oh, that's amazing. So if you could give yourself a piece of advice, back to when you were a trainee or just starting your career, what would you tell yourself?
Well, I said yes to everything, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to say no.
Yes.
To things that you would like to do, but I think you really, for the longer term, you need the balance. For the first, say, 10 years, I worked somewhere between a 1 in 1, like every night on call, and a 1 in 2 for the first 7 years, and it was fun. You learnt a lot. You got good skills, lots of experience, but it's simply not sustainable.
Absolutely.
And you can go hard for a reasonably long period of time, but eventually it's going to catch up. Even with the resilient people, it'll catch up on you. And that's what happened to me. So I would like to say that I've got a more balanced approach to life now. I've got interest outside of orthopaedics. And doing the presidential role is part of that broadening from simply being an operator to being a leader and sharing beyond yourself.
Absolutely. So with this change, especially, we've had a lot of talk about generational changes, and the generations that are coming up, my generation included, are more protective of their personal time, are more looking for work-life balance.
Yes.
But, from an educational standpoint, that also has to be balanced exactly with what you just said. When you started and, you grounded out for 7 years, you really honed your skills.
Yeah.
And that is a very crucial part of being a surgeon. So how do you balance that with, wanting to have some personal time, et cetera, and, but also being able to hone your craft still?
I think there was a time when at the end of your residency or end of your accredited training program, there was an expectation that you would be perfect.
Right.
In your first year out, that you knew everything about everything. Right. I think those times have changed. I think you need to get to a position where you're had the basic skill set, but I think you need to bring people with you along the way, and particularly your family with you along the way. So now I think we recognise that you're not trying to be perfect in your first year out. You've got a lot to learn. And over the last 30 years, every year that goes by, I learn something new.
Yeah.
Something new from, in the last year in the presidential role, something new from Canada, something new from the US, something new from South Africa. So you sit amongst people to give you new ideas. And the same with surgery. I have continued to learn every year that goes by how to do hips and how to do knees better and better. Yeah. It's not that I was perfect. In fact, I was far from perfect at the completion of my training. Yeah. And so I think if you have a different mindset, that this is the beginning of a process, that you've got time to develop yourself, both personally, professionally, non-technically, and you can do that with others. You can certainly do it with your family. And I think that needs to be said.
Do you have any advice on people who want to build those hobbies and passions outside? Because admittedly myself too, I was still part of the era where, through residency, fellowship, and my first, few years of practice, we, ground it out, right? And admittedly lost some of those hobbies, maybe trying to get them back. So what advice would you have for somebody who wants to, keep that in your life?
I think the first thing to recognize is that everybody is really good at something. And so if I talk with you long enough, I'll find out from you what you're really good at. I just call it that, but other people call it a gift. But everyone's special in some way. And so it's kind of interesting to try and find out what that is. And I think you need to look at yourself as well. I think if you internally reflect, you'll find that you're good at some things. So personal reflection, knowing yourself, I think is a good start. But the next thing that's really important is you need to create some space to allow that to happen. Yeah. I like painting. I'm no good at painting, but I had a go at it, and I found that I knew what a straight line was. I sort of understood, broad lines. But in order to do painting, you need a couple of things. You need time, and also you need your head to be in the right space. Yeah, to be a good painter. Right. And so getting those two, where you've got the time and your head's in the right space to allow you to enjoy the thing that you're good at, I think that's my message is you need to allocate some time to personal well-being, physical health, mental health, spiritual health. You need to allocate the time.
So then if we move to the second pillar, connection within orthopedics, talk to us, because you are already practicing in a smaller area. Yeah. Is that part of your mandate? Is that kind of where that came from?
I think it probably is, in part. Being from a very small place, Burnie has a population of 20,000. It's got a catchment of 100,000, but it's a small place. Okay. And I was doing some sort of fancy stuff when I arrived back. I was doing pediatrics, I was doing limb lengthening, I was doing spinal stuff, I was doing a full range of arthroplasty. Yeah. But I found that I needed to get out of Tasmania if I wanted to keep my skills or advance my skills. So once a month, I used to travel from Tasmania, from Burnie, not to somewhere else in Tasmania, but to Victoria, to Melbourne. And in the morning, I used to go to the paediatric main specialist hospital, the children's hospital. Cool. And in the afternoon, I'd go to a private facility where people would show me how to do shoulder surgery, or something that I was interested in doing. So I've always had that idea that I needed to communicate or connect outside of the field. When I was younger, I used to be a diver, and I did the same thing for diving. As a teenager, I used to springboard dive. Cool. And I would travel to Melbourne often on a meat plane to do training or to just compete in Victorian diving championships. So I've always travelled. I've always got out. Yeah. And that's the value of connection. If you see someone in Victoria diving, for example, or you see someone in Victoria operating, or you see someone overseas diving, doing things that you never thought you could do, all of a sudden it becomes possible. Yes. And I think that's the same with, the theme of connection with other orthopaedic surgeons. I want to promote it because it's important, not only to support one another, but to learn from one another. Yes. Sorry, just going back a little bit, you said you went out on a meat plane. Do you mean a meat plane full of meat? So when I was a teenager, I was into diving.
Yeah.
That was my thing.
Yeah.
And so I was serious enough to need to leave the state on a regular basis to go to Victoria, which is about an hour and a half in time on a meat plane. So I used to know when the pilot was taking off. My father would take me to the airport without any bookings, without paying any money. And I would literally sit on the floor between the pilot and the co-pilot up the front with the meat in the back. So there were, animals hanging there that we were transporting from one state to another state. And there was no log that I was on board. But that's the way I got from one state to another to train for diving.
That is incredible. I mean, that just to me takes so much like personal perseverance just to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that now? Because I mean, that is you kind of just talked about gifts earlier. I feel like that maybe is one of your gifts, is that personal perseverance or resilience. We've had some people talk about how to train that into, new doctors in general. Do you think that's something that, you're born with, or is it learned?
Look, I think there was an opportunity given to me. I come from a small place.
Yeah.
And the seven kids. And so there wasn't a lot of money to go around. There's no way that I could afford to get on an airplane to go interstate via the regular channels. So my father was well connected. He knew the owner of the aeroplane.
Right.
And so that connection allowed me to do things that other people wouldn't necessarily be able to do.
Interesting. Now we're really getting to the core of this connection platform. That's really cool.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? You mentioned, your father had a lot of connections. One of the things that we like to talk about, and teach our residents is that networking in orthopedics is so important, because even worldwide, it's a pretty small community. And so is that something that you're trying to instill into your trainees as well?
Absolutely. We've got a focus on technical skills, obviously,
Yeah.
but also the non-technical skills are very much part of our curriculum and our examination.
Amazing.
And so we have a strong focus on assessing non-technical skills, which include, communication, professionalism.
Yeah.
So that's a very big part of what we do for training in Australia.
Do you find that in Australia, because you guys work in a public-private system,
Yes.
is that more important to have those kinds of skills because of the private part of it? Whereas in Canada, we're a very public system. We don't have to fight for patients. You hang a shingle anywhere and your wait list is immediately like a year. Is that a stark difference, or is that...
You mean the non-technical skills? Or?
Correct, the non-technical skill part. Yeah, sorry.
I think we've got such an emphasis on it because it's important.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think it's nice to have a surgeon who's very good at what he does, but surgery is such a small part of what we do. It might represent, for me, it might represent 10 or 15% of my day. In total. So you've got to form relationships with the patients. You've got to know when to and how to give the information across in the way that it can be best received. You need to be a little bit resilient to adverse communications that sometimes occur.
Yeah, fair enough.
You need to be respectful. You need to advocate for the patients. You need to know how to do that. In order to do that, you need to be sometimes better connected with just outside your office. So I think the non-technical skills are important. One of the problems that we're trying to address is that occasionally surgeons do their own thing. So we want to, and not in a good way.
I see.
And so what we're trying to do is select those surgeons who are both good at technical skills and non-technical skills in the way we do things.
Yes. And as I understand it, Dr. Johnson, I think last year said that you're making some changes to your curriculum to maybe reflect that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So I think in the past we've had a focus more on technical skills. Now we've got this thing called competency-based training. And the competencies, yes, technical skills are part of the competencies, but the non-technical skills are very much core to you progressing. To you moving from a position where you're just starting out and you're training to the middle to transition to practice, we call it. So, non-technical skills we hold in high regard. So one of the things that we need to assess is when we have overseas trained doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And at the moment, there's a little shortfall in Australia
Okay.
for surgeons, orthopaedic surgeons. And so we're opening the doors somewhat to overseas trained doctors. When they come in from the UK or from Ireland, almost all of them have the right technical skills.
Right.
And so that's only one part of what we assess. We need to know that they're safe,
Yes.
both from a technical side, but also the non-technical side.
Yes. And that's very interesting because it is that classic thing of just because we're all speaking English doesn't mean we're speaking the same language.
Yeah.
I did my medical school training in Ireland.
Yeah.
I'm born and raised in Canada. I speak English.
Yeah.
But when I went over there, it took me a good year to adjust to just the cultural nuances, and even the spoken language was a little bit different in terms of the connotation. So it's very astute that that is a significant part of your I guess assessment of incoming physicians.
Exactly.
Yeah. Another part of the connection that's really interesting that has lots of value for Canadians is our geography is somewhat similar to Australia. We have areas of very dense population and areas of very sparse population.
Yeah.
And sometimes those areas of sparse populations are a little bit underserved.
Yes.
And it's hard to get care there.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about creating those connections and maybe providing better access to care to those sparser populations?
So I think nationally there's a push at the moment to try to get more doctors into the regional areas. It's hard to do that.
Yes.
Guys like me who were born in the country find it easy to go back to the country, but when you grow up in a metropolitan area, and in particular when the family has ties, the grandparents in the bigger cities, it's hard. It's hard to move with kids to the country and to lose that support.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It is possible. We're trying to have more medical schools in the country so that we're bringing the medical students through to a position where they can be considered for selection and have country as being home. So when they finish their training program, they feel very comfortable about coming home. So we're very much promoting that. But in addition to that, I come from a small place, so there's things I can do and things I can't do. Right. So in the connection theme, I need to know who to turn to for a spine emergency or for some complex hip or knee problem that I can't address. So you do need to be connected in that sense.
Yeah, and hopefully, that's something that if they can train in those local areas, then maybe their families are rooted there, right? But before they even leave. And so they're being drawn back to just like you were. Yeah.
So I have a couple of people that I'm looking after at the moment in Burnie. One's a young female. She's got no family history of anyone being a doctor or surgeon, but she comes from this small place. She wants to be an orthopaedic surgeon.
Nice.
From Burnie. She wants to go away, be trained, come back to Burnie. So that's the sort of person you need to train and support.
Absolutely, yeah. And do you find those people come to you, or is that you have to seek them out as a mentor now?
Well, interestingly, this particular girl came to see me as a patient, and she was only, 14 or 16. She was way too young to be thinking about becoming an orthopaedic surgeon. But at that stage, I encouraged her to do what she wants to do, and she can do it.
Amazing.
And it's just it's kind of funny that she then moved on through her younger years of education and came back to see me as a junior doctor and reminded me, you saw me when I was a patient.
Wow.
And you encouraged me to be an orthopaedic surgeon, or you encouraged me to do things. I want to be an orthopaedic surgeon. So it's really nice. It's really, that's the good part about being an orthopaedic surgeon or being a mentor or being a supporter.
Absolutely. And now you've come full circle, you're paying it forward, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really... maybe she'll be one of the ones on our podcast in like 15 years, and on her origin story, she'll say, it was Dr. Scott Fletcher.
I tell you, this girl's going to be a leader. She could easily be up the top. So
awesome. And then so the final pillar is you were mentioning connections outside of your kind of local orthopedics. And that is, as you mentioned, something we've heard over and over again because it's becoming so important.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about the importance of that and how we can do that as orthopedic surgeons?
The obvious one is the regulators or the government have such an influence over what we do now. And we heard this morning of some of the stressors of orthopaedic surgeons within a stressed hospital environment. and the importance of those orthopaedic surgeons being on the boards that matter, being in a position where they can change or shape policy. So over the last year or two, we've really focused on trying to be better connected with government. We want to meet with the ministers, we want to meet with the advisors, and we want to be part of industry decision-making, or insurers or hospital providers. So we want to be connected in that space, because if we're not, then it's very hard to affect change. So one of the things we've realised, belatedly perhaps, and not so much mentioned at this conference, is it's much easier to get access to the minister if you take patients with you.
Oh, interesting.
So one of the connections that we have that we've really strengthened is connection with the patient advocacy groups.
Interesting.
So if we take a leader of a patient consumer group with us to the minister, the door's open. They actually listen to what we say, and we go together. And so that's been it's so obvious that we should be partnering with patients.
Yeah.
You talk about the connection theme. Partnering with patients is probably the number one. And so we've been doing a lot of that. But aside from the government and industry and insurers, you've also got your partnering with your neighbours. And in terms of Australia, the neighbours of the Asia Pacific. And so we've really reached out to the Asia Pacific, asking them what it is that we can do to help you. And already Australia goes to Indonesia, for example, or the Pacific Island, and we help them with examinations. We used to, and still do a little bit, do operations, but more and more we're turning away from doing the operations to teaching the operations, or in terms of examination, rather than being examiners, we're more now teaching the examiners, the standards or how we would do it. I'm not to say that they're not sophisticated in their own examination, but it's that connection and sharing is what we do now. So we're trying to work out for the next 5 to 10 to 20 years, what is the relationship that Australia needs to have with the Asia Pacific? What is it that they need from us? What can we get from them? So those partnerships are getting stronger now. I've recently been invited to go to a course or a convention in Jakarta. I've been to India recently and Japan. The Vice President has been to Singapore. So, we are really strengthening this geographic connection.
No.
And I think that's a good thing. So in October at the ASM in Hobart, we'll be inviting a whole range of Asia Pacific presidents to come to Australia. And it's part of sharing and understanding the needs of each of the areas, and there's only upside. There's no downside to this connection. So we're into that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because you're saying, what can we get? Well, one of the things I've learned from being part of the COA is like, if your aim is to serve and you do it, with passion and with authenticity, it's going to pay it back, tenfold, 100. You don't even know how much it's going to pay you back, but it's going to be worth it in the end. Yeah.
The talk I listened to this morning from the incoming president,
Dr. Delay
of Canada, was she was talking about things that I could see were happening in Australia. She articulated them better than I could articulate them. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to use some of the things that she discussed or talked about in my presidential address. That's the benefit of sharing and being here.
Totally.
It's if I said before about trying to work out what people's gifts are.
Yeah.
And so when I come away to meetings like this, I can see wise people all around me, people that can teach me a lot. Yeah. So I keep my ear open for that and I take them back.
And if we go back to the first thing you said about this third pillar, which was working with the patient advocacy groups.
Yeah.
I've definitely learned it's about storytelling. It's about having them in your corner.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that your goals are aligned with their goals? Or is that going to be a natural thing so that when you present something to the regulators and the ministers or whoever you're meeting with, it doesn't become just a bit of a complaint festival and there's actually forward motion?
Developing relationships is not mechanical. So you do need to invest the time in it. If you spend the time and you have good intent, if you have the right direction, the right purpose, and you keep your ears open, you'll find a lot of common ground.
Yeah.
And their priorities might not necessarily be my priorities, but spending the time and sharing the knowledge and then advocating together.
Yeah.
It's it's a step-by-step process.
Yeah.
You know, you might not get what you want, and they might not get what they want in the first go. But that building of relationships is such a sensible, strong thing to do. You know, patients, even though they might not know the nuances of orthopaedics, they can definitely shape the direction that things go.
Right.
They, you know, it's a really good thing to do. One of the things the Australian Orthopaedic Association have done in the last year to connect more with patient advocacy groups or independents is we've opened the board up to independents. So now there's up to 3 independent consumer-based directors that can come onto our board. So we're just about to start introducing those. On all our major board committees, we've got independent representatives.
Interesting.
Recently we've got this registry called the Australian Orthopaedic Association National Joint Replacement Registry.
Yes.
It's quite a big thing. And recently we had our first ever educational day where we invited consumers, patient reps, we invited nurses, physiotherapists, hospital coordinators, CEOs, insurers. You know, so it was a very smart, good thing to do. We had such a good vibe, and it was such a step forward for our registry to open it up to people outside of orthopaedics.
Awesome.
It's such a positive thing to do.
Yes, it's very clever because you're basically building into your association your exact platform, which is unreal.
Yeah,
that's really amazing. And so finally, what does it mean to you in terms of the connection, in terms of being your hometown, your home state, to have your next meeting in Hobart?
Look, I'm really looking forward to it. We had 2 options, and the CEO said, "What about Hobart?" And I thought it was a great opportunity.
Yeah,
I'm very much looking forward to it for a number of reasons. You know, Hobart and Tasmania is not Vancouver. It's not Chicago. It's not San Diego. It's small. But it's got something special to offer.
of course.
And so I'm very keen to show what Tasmania has got, not only from a scientific point of view, but just from an environmental point of view.
Right.
The food is great, the wine is great, the wilderness is fantastic. So I'm very much looking forward to sharing what this little island has to offer to the international presence and Australia generally.
Oh, we're very excited for you. So if people want to find out more about, your work or the AOA's work and advocacy and the database and everything else, how could they reach out to you?
The AOA website is there, aoa.org.au.
Amazing.
And there you can have the contact, including access to the presidential line or the president. So that would be an easy thing to do.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for being here. It's been wonderful talking to you, and we hope to get to visit you in Tasmania.
Thanks very much, Adrian.
Thanks.
Cheers.